Good evening. I know that not all of the sites are streaming yet because there is lag and it takes forever, but hopefully y'all will all catch up. Oh yeah. Alright, I'm back. Sorry. I spaced out. ADHD's a bitch, y'all. Sometimes I'm just like, hey, thing. And then I focus on the thing, completely forgetting what it was that I thought I was focusing on. Because that's ADHD. Yay. It's fabulous. Hi, I'm John Hartness. I am the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books. I am also a writer. I write the Bubba the Monster Hunter series of novellas and short stories. I write the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter series of novellas and novels. And I also write the Black Knight Chronicles urban fantasy novels. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. It's great to... I was going to say it's great to see everybody, but I can't see any of you. I see my giant head, which... I know what my giant head looks like. It looks like a big old melon that was dropped on my shoulders because I have no neck. But regardless, tonight I'm going to talk about query letters and submissions and what the submission process looks like with a small press. Falstaff Books is a small press. Sometimes we're called a micro press because of our number of employees. We publish, 50 books a year or so, between 50 and 60. And we focus on science fiction, fantasy, horror, paranormal romance, romance with any hint of science fiction or fantasy or horror in it, and those books that don't really fit into other genres or other publishing houses. So we call ourselves the Misfit Toys of Fiction, and we are currently open for submissions, which is why we're talking about query letters and the submission process this evening. Now, that's what we're doing, or what I'm doing. You're watching me do that. So before I get into that, it is February 2nd, 2021, and February is Women in Horror Month. And because of that, I have featured 3 of our horror or horror-adjacent titles that are written by female authors. Renew You by Michelle Tracy Berger, A Doll's Life by Alidria Hurt, and White Spirit by Amy Ravenel. And White Spirit's sequel, Cursed Spirit, is already out as well. So you can pick all of those up in paperback from falstaffbooks.com or wherever you buy books. And you can get them on ebook from Amazon. All right, plug's done. That plug's done. I'll probably plug other crap over the course of the next however long we're talking. So, we are very seldom open to unsolicited submissions, or what people in the industry call slush. The reason is that we have plenty of books in the pipeline. The stuff that we're going to be reading at the end of February, when this open submission is over, is for publication in 2023, 2024, and 2025. Because we're that far ahead, we have enough books in our hands, stacked up and under contract, to stay busy for the next several years. And that's not even counting the stuff I write. And we're not even talking about the stuff that Gail and Larry Martin write, because between the 3 of us, I think it's close to 20 books a year if we're really all rolling. But that's why we don't open up for unsolicited submissions very often. We're open for 1 month a year. We're open for, and it's the shortest month. We're open for February. That's it. So we opened up yesterday, at midnight on February 1st. At 12:01, the first submission came in. No, I was not sitting here watching the email box. I looked at the timestamps the next morning. I was in the other room watching NCIS New Orleans. Since the submissions have opened up not quite 48 hours ago, we've received 48 submissions. And that's assuming none have come in the 30 minutes since I closed my mail application, because it goes ding, and I don't want that crap while I'm streaming. So we're averaging about one submission every hour. And we publish 50 books a year. And I account for 4 to 6 of those. Other authors under contract account for a significant number of those. So the field is crowded. It is hard to get your book accepted, even by the smallest of small presses like us. So that means that your stuff has to be on point. You've got to have your crap together when you send in that email. It's not that we don't want to publish your awesome book. It's that we can't publish every awesome book that comes across our desks. I have told fantastic authors and fantastic agents that yes, I would love to have this book, and no, I'm not going to publish this book because I can't fit it into our schedule. So I'm sorry. Good luck. I hope you place it somewhere else. That's the truth of the field. It is very hard. We are a tiny, tiny press based out of North Carolina, and we take about 0.5% of all unsolicited submissions. If we continue to get one submission per hour, I'm over here doing math on the little side of the screen. That's 672 submissions that we would receive in the month of February. If we get 700 submissions in the month of February, we might take 4 of those, maybe. So if you're going to be one of the 4, you've got to nail it. So how do you nail it? Well, here's what we want. Everybody's different. But here's what we like to see in a query letter and in a submission. First, go to falstaffbooks.com, click on the submissions tab, go there and read the guidelines. I will go over those guidelines here in a little bit so that everybody understands all the pieces of it. Because some of them, sometimes we use industry-specific terms. Some things are kind of complicated software-wise. And I don't want somebody to get dinged because they didn't understand the tech. But what you need for us to submit a novel to Falstaff Books, you need a cover letter or a query letter. For us, those are interchangeable. You need a cover letter and you need a manuscript. We want to see the first 3 chapters of a novel-length work. That means 50,000 words and above for us. So if it's a full-size book, we want to see the first 3 chapters. I'm pretty sure that the last time I said the first 3, I did this, which I'm a product of the South Carolina Public Education System, so that's just how I roll, y'all. So some people have asked, if the book has a prologue, do I want to see the prologue and 2 chapters, or do I want to see the prologue and 3 chapters? And the answer is, it depends. How long is the prologue? If your prologue's like 500 to 1,000 words, then do the prologue and 3 chapters will be fine. If your prologue is 5,000 words, then for fuck's sake, cut your prologue down. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to say fuck on here. Fuck that up. If your prologue is 5,000 words long, one, your prologue's too long. Two, send me the prologue in like 1 or 2 chapters, because that's a lot. We're really looking for about a 10,000 word chunk of novel. We're looking for a 1,000 word sample of a novella. Do not take your sample or your chapters out of the middle of the book. Begin at the beginning. Your submission starts at the beginning. I emphasize this because it's happened multiple times. Don't send me chapter 15 through 17. Send me chapters 1 through 3. Don't send me 1,000 words of a fight scene coming up to the climax of your novella. Send me the first 1,000 words. Why? If you really sincerely are asking why, then you're not ready to submit your book for publication. You should take a step back, study the field. There are plenty of fantastic resources out there. You should take some time and research. Before I submitted my first novel for publication, I spent a year studying the publishing industry and going through the submission process on short fiction and on poetry, actually. I still didn't get that book published by anyone other than me. I'm okay with that. The book's done all right. It's called The Chosen. You can get it now. It's not the one by Chaim Potok. I am not a National Book Award winner. I'm also not dead. So, you need a query letter. You need a manuscript. What should your query letter include? My preferred format for a query letter is 3 to 4 paragraphs. First paragraph. If you have met the editor or publisher or the person you're sending the submission to, that is the first damn thing in the query letter. The first line. Dear Falstaff Books, I met your publisher, John Hartness, at a convention in the lobby bar of the hotel, and he said I should send my manuscript. That is how a lot of our books get acquired, or got acquired in the times when we could be face-to-face and have conventions. If I've met you, if one of my editors has met you and said, hey, you should send this in, or hey, whenever we get to our open call, you should submit this, put that right up front. That's the very first thing. If you took a class from one of us, any of that goes right in the beginning. But I want the title of the book, the length of the book, the genre, the target market. Hard Day's Night is a 75,000-word urban fantasy novel targeted for adult audiences who like light-hearted urban fantasy. That would be the query letter that I would send for the first of the Black Knight Chronicles if I hadn't sold that book by ambushing the publisher at a convention and saying, hey, you should publish my stuff. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Literally, the crap that works for me won't work for everyone. That's what I want in that first paragraph. I want to know a little bit about the book, the nuts and bolts. For example, if our sweet spot for a novel is up to about 110,000 words. So a fantastic thing to include if you've got a big old honking book that's, say, 130,000 words, a great way to start is, I'm sending you this 130,000 word epic fantasy. I know that's longer than you typically like, but I am happy to work with editors and trim this down for publication. That tells me, one, that you've read the guidelines. Two, that you understand that things may get cut in the editorial process. And 3, that you are willing to work and take editing. You're willing to take edits. You are not going to be a pain in the butt to work with. So I personally like comps in the first paragraph. This series is like Ash versus the Evil Dead meets Larry the Cable Guy. That's how the Bubba the Monster Hunter series was described in a review. Those kind of comps. But if you're going to use comps, make sure your comps not only fit your book, but fit together at least somehow. Because you can't really tell me that your book is like Mercedes Lackey's Valdemar series and like David Weber's Honor Harrington series, all in the same thing. Because one of those things is not like the other. Actually, those two things are not like the others. Not like each other. So make sure that your comps fit. Make sure that your comps are well known enough. They don't have to, it doesn't have to be David Weber and Mercedes Lackey, but it's not bad. But don't overreach. Comparing your stuff to Neil Gaiman's American Gods might be stretching a little bit, especially if you're submitting to a publisher who has said on social media many times that he's a big fan of Neil Gaiman and particularly American Gods. But I find them helpful. In the second paragraph of your query/cover letter, I want a brief synopsis. I want a brief synopsis. I don't want the plot of your book. I want 3 to 5 sentences just like they taught you back in high school for a 5-paragraph essay. I want a little bitty chunk that's going to hook me. Why should I care about this character? What are the stakes? What's happening? Is the world going to blow up? Buffy Summers is a normal high school girl until a strange old man tells her she's the chosen one. And then vampires destroy her prom. Okay, I'm hooked. That's a hook. Everything's going fine until the dwarves show up and take Bilbo on a quest. And then there's a ring and things get really weird. You know, though, keep it tight in that second paragraph. If you have a super complex plot, if you're working in epic fantasy, you can maybe stretch it to 2 paragraphs. Your entire query letter should never go over 1 page. I'd like it if it never made it past 2/3 of a page. Your third paragraph should be something about you. Something interesting. Relevant work experience if you're pitching Renew You, which is a horror-adjacent story about hair products for women of color. Okay. I should not write this book. I am not a woman of color and know nothing about hair products. But if you've worked in a salon, or if you're a woman of color, you know way more about that. So I was a hair product rep for 5 years, and it inspired me to write this book about hair products creating a global pandemic. Okay, I'm in. If you have an MFA in creative writing, there are a few programs in the country, probably in the world. I'm unfortunately not as familiar with educational programs outside the U.S. because I'm a typical, egocentric American who thinks the world revolves around me. Actually, I'm a publisher. The world does revolve around me. Anyway, if you have attended one of the very few creative writing MFA programs that are welcoming to genre fiction, science fiction, fantasy, horror, the stuff we publish, include that. If you have an MFA from one of the vast majority of creative writing MFA programs that all look down their nose on genre fiction and talk about how terrible the work that puts food on my table is, probably want to leave that off the letter. I don't actually care what your level of education is. I care how great your book is. But if you went to some of these places, I may know people who taught there. If you went to Winthrop University and majored in theater, I almost certainly know someone who taught you. I almost certainly publish someone who went to school with you, because we have an inordinate number of Winthrop graduates among the people that we publish. Jessica Nettles in chat says, makes me glad I didn't lead with my MFA. Her book's coming out this year and it's fantastic, so keep a lookout for Jessica Nettles, The Children of Menlo Park. It'll be coming from Falstaff Books later this year. 2, just met me at a convention, so she would have always led with, hey, you told me to send you this manuscript. So yeah, if you went to, if you graduated with an MFA from one of the programs that digs genre fiction, tell me that. If you've taken workshops, if you've taken Jodi Lynn Nye's workshop, if you've taken some of Kat Rambo's workshops, if you came to Saga, the writing conference we produced last year before the plague, if you have taken Mike Stackpole's workshops, if you've done Clarion or Clarion West, if you've done any of those things, that goes in that third paragraph. If you belong to any of the professional organizations for writers, or even your local writers group, put that in there. All of those things show me dedication. Also, at the end is where you list other publications. Unless you're a New York Times bestseller or you've won a major, hell, if you've been nominated for a Hugo, a Nebula, or a major industry award, put that at the very top too. But if you've won regional awards, if you are a member of Horror Writers of America, if you're a member of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, if you're a member of RWA or whatever organization RWA has become, if you're a member of Sisters in Crime, any of those, tell me that. One thing. You don't have to address your query letter for a publisher to a specific person. You certainly don't need to address a Falstaff submission to me, because you have to get through at least two other people before I see the book. So if you just want to say, dear editors, dear Falstaff Books, dear Misfits, if you're feeling quirky, that's fine. You can say to whom it may concern. It's a little stuffy, but that's fine. You can say, dear poor person who is stuck reading slush this month. That's fine. It's kind of quirky. But you don't have to address it to dear Mr. Hartness. I get confused. I think somebody's talking to my older brother when they talk about Mr. Hartness. He was a teacher and principal for a long time. He's a Mr. Hartness. But if you're going to address it to a specific person, spell the name right. I am not a Doctor Who character, and I was not the lead character on Torchwood. I have never been portrayed by John Barrowman. I am not Captain Jack Harkness. I understand the confusion, especially given the genre I work in. But double check that stuff. Make sure that your autocorrect didn't turn Falstaff into Flagstaff in the header, because that's happened. Hell, I've done that. So yeah, make sure you read the guidelines. And now I'm going to go over those guidelines with you. I should have had this tab open already. I don't. So give me a second while it opens up. I bet that just got like really bright on my face when that all went white. Okay. What we're looking for. Right up top. Fantasy, urban fantasy, science fiction, horror, romance, Weird West, and misfit toys. That means if you have a collection of short stories about your time living in New York City over a bodega and the things you learned from your dog, we are not the market for that book. Unless the dog literally talks and maybe flies. So, and yes, again, I say this because I've gotten them. So, take a look at what we publish. For novels, we prefer novel-length submissions in the range of 60 to 110,000 words. Let me know in the cover letter if it's a standalone novel or part of a longer series. If you want it to be a 4-book series, just say it's a 4-book series. I know there's this whole idea that, well, you can't really say it's a series, say it's a standalone with series potential. No, if you're sending it to us and it's a trilogy, tell me it's a trilogy. If it's a 10-book series, tell me it's a 10-book series. That's a harder sell. Just saying. Hell, I've never even written a 10-book series. Not novels, anyway. Novellas. Falstaff Books considers novellas in the 30 to 40,000 word range. When sending a sample from a novella, submit the first 1,000 words. Solicited submissions. Here's the difference. A solicited submission is what happens when I say, hey, you're kind of awesome. You should send it straight to me. Send it to john@falstaffbooks.com. If I ever tell you this, ever, you should also copy that email to Melissa@falstaffbooks.com. She loses far fewer emails than I do and is generally just the keeper of my brain. So if I tell you to send it to john@falstaffbooks.com, copy that to Melissa@falstaffbooks.com. She's probably going to send me a message in Slack any second swearing at me for saying this on the stream. Please format your work in standard manuscript format. And then we go down to describe what is standard manuscript format. Microsoft Word only. Some people really love RTF files, rich text format. I'm not that somebody. Microsoft Word, doc or docx format. The manuscript should be submitted as an attached file, not embedded in the email. This is us. Some people want the manuscript embedded in the email. We're not those people. 12-point Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, double-spaced. Do not indent manually. This is the biggest technical question that people have. What do you mean? I start a new paragraph, I hit the tab thing. Don't do that. Stop doing that. In Microsoft Word, go up to the top where you've set up your paragraphs and click Indent First Line. and set your indent up there. Why do I care about this? Because if we select your manuscript for publication, at some point through the process, we're going to go through multiple rounds of editing. We're going to go through multiple revisions of this book. But at some point, I'm going to have to import that file into an ebook creation format. And if you have hit a tab at the beginning of every paragraph, someone's got to go back and take every one of those out, because it screws up some ebook creation programs. It's going to save you time 2 years down the road. Just set up your indents in Microsoft Word. Number your pages, blah, blah, blah. Please include your name, email address on the cover page. Yes. Chapters must start on a new page. Please. It helps my brain. Pretty please. So, when we're accepting unsolicited submissions, like right now, we're getting a bunch. Like I said, we're averaging one an hour. So, it's going to take a little time. Nobody is getting a response during the month of February. Probably nobody is getting a response in the month of March. Nobody's getting a yes in the month of March anyway, because I'm slow. So it's going to take us a minimum of 90 days before we start getting out there and responding to submissions. So, what else? Oh, wait, I have notes. Shit, where are my notes? Ha! I closed my notes. Well, that was dumb. Okay, those are the guidelines. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So some common mistakes. I've gone over some of these. If you use a name, spell it right. Follow the guidelines. A lot of times people say, add a personal paragraph about the agent. Don't add a personal paragraph about your deep-seated connection to me and to Falstaff Books or to one of my other editors, and how it's okay. If we have a deep-seated connection, we probably already know that. If you're going to reference books if you're going to say, I've looked over your catalog and you look like a great fit for our publishing company, make sure that's true. I know that's a line that everybody wants to use, but if, for example, you're sending me the first in a military science fiction trilogy, don't say, I've looked over your catalog and I think that you are the perfect fit for this military science fiction series. We've published 2 mil-sci-fi books. 2. If we get a fantastic one, we will absolutely publish more. But we publish a lot of urban fantasy. We publish a lot of space opera. We publish a lot of historical fantasy, which I never saw happening. But we get a lot of great historical fantasy. Sorry. So if you are going to put in your query letter that you have looked over, our catalog, don't be lying. I can tell. Oh, yeah. Don't use a boilerplate query letter. Or at least don't make it obvious that you're using a boilerplate query letter. What are some of the things that make it obvious? When you send a query to a publisher that says you're seeking representation for your novel. We don't represent authors. We publish books. So yeah, don't send me the same letter that you've sent to 200 agents. Oh yeah, don't tell me how great your book is or what it will make me feel. I'm going to feel what I feel. And I'm fairly obstinate, so telling me what your book will make me feel is just going to make me say, nuh-uh, like I'm a little kid or something. Because, I kind of am. If you have a question, email us first. info@falstaffbooks.com. Hi, I'm readying this manuscript for submission, and I wanted to double check that I could send in this 130,000 word novel, because you say that you really prefer max of 110,000 words. The answer is going to be yes, you can send the first 3 chapters. We may have to talk about, if you get all the way through the process, we'll probably have to talk about length before publication, but that's a long way down the road. Okay, we had some questions. One that is relevant to queries was, how much info do you recommend including about other publications? If you have written novels and published novels before, I would suggest you include that. If the book that you're submitting has been previously self-published, you better damn tell me that. Yes, we will still consider previously self-published work. I want to know that it's been out there, and I want to know how it has sold and what kind of marketing you've done for it and why you want to switch to working with a publisher. If you have published a lot of short fiction in really great markets like Asimov's or fantasy and science fiction, or in great anthologies like the stuff that Zombies Need Brains puts out, put that in there. Any SIFWA qualifying market that you've been published in, put that in there. If you don't know what a SIFWA qualifying market is, you can Google it. I have faith in you. You are all intelligent people. I know, because Wolverine told me so. So, if you've had a couple of things published in online journals that were free and didn't pay anything, or you've had a couple of pieces in a couple of anthologies, put it in there. It's not going to hurt to tell me that you've had some work published somewhere. Things that'll make me perk up are you having worked with editors that I know. If you've been published in an anthology that Jonathan Mayberry put together, if you've been published in an anthology that Ellen Datlow put together, I want to know that. If you've been published in an anthology that I've been in, rock on. I want to know that, because I don't always read the whole anthologies, and I don't always remember the table of contents. I've signed anthologies with people and sat down to sign the books and looked over and said, "Oh, are you in this thing?" And they said, "Yeah, are you in this thing?" "Yeah." "Cool." We had really no idea. Earlier, go ahead and put them in chat. There's lag, which is why I'm trying to take these questions that came in earlier today first. Because otherwise, I'm going to sit here twiddling my thumbs while you type in a question and I wait 45 seconds or so for it to pop up in my chat stream. A member of my John G. Hartness Books group says, how does a new writer get noticed by anyone in a sea of writers when everyone thinks they are the next Martin or Jordan? I'll be honest with you, if any of us knew how anybody gets noticed, none of us would ever have a book that flops. If any of us really knew how to make a bestseller, nobody'd ever write a book that doesn't make any money. We certainly wouldn't buy it. How getting writers noticed is the hardest part. And it is constantly changing and constantly evolving. So be out there, be visible, be genuine. A lot of the writers that we publish, I have met in person. Obviously, this is advice from the before times. We, in the before times, we did 20 to 30 convention appearances a year. And I'm always happy to talk to new writers at these conventions. So that's one way to get noticed. I have several writer friends who I spent several years seeing them in the front row of every writing panel at multiple conventions around the Southeast. They were studying. They were working on their craft. Then they got a couple anthology publications. Then they got a couple of bigger anthology publications. Then they got a book published, or then they self-published a book. And they've just grown and grown, and now they're sitting on the other side of the table at those conventions talking to the next set of baby writers or new writers. But you just got to write a fantastic book. Don't try to be the next George R.R. Martin, and don't try to be the next Robert Jordan, because the first books in either of those series wouldn't sell today. George R.R. Martin was not a monster bestseller for his entire career. A Song of Ice and Fire is a 20-year journey to overnight superstardom, maybe a 30-year journey. He'd been in the business a long time and been working at it hard and putting out quality work and selling books and making a living. Robert Jordan, the first Wheel of Time book wouldn't get bought today. Times have changed. Don't try to ape the writing styles of the people you read when you were a kid. Because nobody wants to go to Yale School of Drama and learn how to act like Richard Burton nowadays, or Lionel Barrymore. Because styles change. The way we read has changed and continues to change. So, Lord of the Rings wouldn't get sold today. But none of those books would probably be written that way today either. A book it's a piece of time. It is a product of its environment and a product of, obviously, its author. So, don't try to be the next George R.R. Martin or the next Robert Jordan. Try to be the first you. When I started, Stephen King has said many times, you have to write 1 million shitty words before you start getting to the good ones. And I kind of poo-pooed that for a long time until I realized that the 7 years I spent blogging every day and the 5 years I spent writing for the online poker industry accumulated well over 1 million shitty words and maybe 100,000 decent ones before I ever started writing fiction. I developed my narrative voice before I ever tried to write a book. You're going to have to do that too. You're going to have to develop your voice. Don't try to write like me. 1, I'm not done writing, so step off my shit, y'all. 2, you won't do it as well, because you're not me. God, I hope you're not me. That would get, 1, be creepy, and 2, get confusing. Find your voice. Yes, build your social media platform. Yes, join writers groups. But a new writer gets noticed by being amazing, or by going and meeting with writers who are interested in mentoring other writers. I honestly consider this publishing company an opportunity for me to mentor writers. And it's me paying back what Deb Dixon from Bellbridge Books did for me. She has spent the last decade mentoring me as a writer, and I'm working on revisions for my 8th Black Knight Chronicles book, the penultimate book in the series. And every day as I go through revisions, I think, damn, I'm a better writer from having worked for her. And I just did proofreads for the next Bubba the Monster Hunter novella, and I'm going through, and working with Melissa makes me a better writer. Every editor you work for is going to make you better, but sometimes you'll be able to find somebody in a position to mentor you. I was lucky. When I signed on with Bellbridge, Deb said, I've got about the bandwidth to take on one new writer a year. I edit more books than that, but as far as less experienced writers who I'm going to have to work with and teach them how to be a writer, I can do about one a year. Well, I'm at the same place. I can take on about one new writer a year. Y'all are lucky. I've got several writers that I feel are graduated now. We've worked together for several years. They have grown in their craft and they've leveled up. Now, I'll still edit some of their stuff, but I'm not teaching them how to build a book anymore. I'm not teaching them what some of the fundamentals of crafting a novel and crafting a series are. They've got that now. So now I can take on a new one. If it's you, then I'll look forward to it. It'll be awesome. We'll have fun. You'll spend much of your time hating me. And then my friend Cameron asked to talk through the process after acceptance. There was a thread on Twitter last week. I heard that they kicked a fat guy off Twitter, so they were short a fat guy, so I went back on Twitter. And there was a thread on Twitter. What was the biggest lie you told yourself about a writing career or about publishing? And one of mine was that as a small press that I could make books faster than New York. I can't make books faster. I can't make good books faster. From the time we sign a contract to the time a book hits your hands, it's 14 to 24 months, depending on your experience level and how quickly we work through things together. If I'm publishing your 27th book, it's going to go faster. If I'm publishing your first book, it's going to hit more on that 24 months kind of thing, because it takes time. For one, I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I currently have 9 books in my queue that are mine to handle the lead edits on. Some of those are going to be fast because they're reviewing edits that have already been done. Yes, Jess, one of those is yours. It's third in my queue. But some of those are going to be fast because they're writers I've worked with multiple times, or they're writers that are very experienced. One of those is the third in a trilogy of Stuart Jaffe's books that we're publishing this summer. Well, the edits on that are pretty quick because I've already edited the first 2. And Stuart's a professional writer and has been longer than I have. So I don't have a whole ton of notes for Stuart. So that helps. That makes that one go quicker. Some are going to take longer. And then I also have books to write. I have a minimum of 2 novels. Oh, no, 3. I have a minimum of 3 novels and 2 novellas to write this year. So I also have that on my plate. So I'm slow. But when a book is accepted, most of the time, if Melissa buys it, Melissa MacArthur is our associate publisher at Falstaff Books. If Melissa buys it, she's probably going to be the lead editor on it. Sometimes she will then say to me, hey, this would be really good for so-and-so editor. If Lucy Blue, who's the lead editor for our Falstaff Crush line, which is our romance line, if Lucy buys it, Lucy's almost certainly going to be the lead editor for that book or series. If I buy it, and I buy the majority of the books that we publish just because I know more people and I write the checks, so I kind of get to do some of that. Most of the time, I'm going to assign it to someone else. Melissa and I have a conversation once a month about every book in the queue, and we go through and we talk about, okay, where is it in the process? Where does it need to go? So the first step is the book gets assigned to a lead editor. Sometimes that's going to be a developmental edit where you may see the bones of a really great book in there, but we're going to take the whole thing apart and build it back stronger. That's going to be a developmental edit. There's a book in there, but you're going to have to chisel to make it come out. That's a longer process. What I do, and that's when I talk about the writers I mentor, I do developmental on a couple of writers. Sometimes the lead editor is doing just line edits. Hey, this word might be better than this word. Hey, you've repeated this word a lot. Hey, you have used the word so over 200 times in dialogue in this book. Please cut at least half of them. Yes, that's a note I received. Hey, apparently there's only one type of wood in this country because every time you mention a specific wood, it's this kind of wood. That is me doing line edits. So more experienced writers are going to have line edits. The stuff I'm doing for Stuart, the book I'm working on right now for Aaron Rosenberg, I'm doing line edits. These guys are experienced novelists. I don't need to tell them how to build a novel or a series. We're just going through and I'm helping them polish. Once the lead editor has determined that the book is ready to move on, either it's developmentally ready to go, and we're now at the point where all we're really going to be working on is tiny tweaks, then first it goes to a copy editor. The copy editor is the first person who starts looking at grammar, who starts really looking at, yes, some of our line editors do. I do a little of very little because I have only the vaguest notion of where commas are supposed to go. I think they're like garlic and should be sprinkled liberally through everything. Just as I started dialogue lines with so at least 200 times in Children of Menlo Park. Yeah, you did. But I did it in everything. I am the worst offender we publish for starting dialogue with so. It's my hum. It's my But anyway, I forgot what I was saying. Whatever. Develop if copy edits, right? Copy editor is the person who makes sure that names are spelled consistently. The copy editor is the person who makes sure that your character's height doesn't change. Guilty. They make sure that your character has the same eye color from paragraph to paragraph. Guilty. They make sure that you know that Walmart stopped being a hyphenated store name in this year. So if your book is set prior to this year, it's hyphenated and the W and the M are capitalized. If it's set after that year, it's one word and only the W is capitalized. That's the stuff that a copy editor fixes. That is not the stuff that an ADHD-addled developmental editor or publisher fixes. I only know these things because I have gotten these notes from copy editors. If sometimes the copy editor is wrong. Sometimes the copy editor is technically correct, but sometimes it's worth fighting a little. Here's an example. When I started publishing the Black Knight Chronicles, I self-published the first 3 books in the series. I've never felt that the word internet should be capitalized. That was grammatically incorrect for a long time. It should have been capitalized as a proper noun. When I sold the books, came back, and every time it had internet, it was capitalized. I finally stopped rejecting the change and just put a note and said, we're planning a 6-book series. It's grown. It's going to be 9 now. We're planning a 6-book series, and this year, internet is supposed to be capitalized. But by the time we get to the end of the series, I guarantee you internet will be lowercase. I want internet to be lowercase. My editor and publisher, 1, thought I was crazy. 2, did not care enough to fight me on that one and said, if this is a hill that you're willing to die on, I will let you die on this particular silly-ass hill. And I was like, awesome. I will go back through and change all of my narrow pop culture references to much broader pop culture references that will be more timeless. And that was the compromise. Before we published Book 7, the Chicago Manual of Style, which is the style guide we use, changed the capitalization of internet. I've been married a long time, y'all. I'm not right very often, so I save those moments and I tell those stories often. It's me reliving my glory days, like that former football player. Another one is in one of the Black Knight Chronicles books, I referenced the X-Men a lot. Well, so X-Men is a lot of things. It's a comic book series. It's multiple comic book series. It's multiple movie series. And it's a team of superheroes in the comic book and movie series. Well, they're treated differently grammatically. While they're always spelled capital X hyphen capital M E N, the comic book series and the movie series are italicized, but when it's the superhero team, it's not italicized. If you don't know all of those things, then you aren't going to know which one shouldn't be italicized. I was the biggest nerd in the room, so I knew which one should be italicized and shouldn't. So that wasn't one that we really fought over. That was just me explaining what the X-Men were. Guns. Guns and horses, y'all. You're going to, at some point, screw up a gun thing or a horse thing. You're going to get crucified for it. You're going to get absolutely murdered for it. Just accept it. I have screwed up innumerable gun things in my writing career because I'm not a gun guy. The trick I learned to screwing up fewer gun things, I've studied the manufacturer specifications for about 5 different firearms. And I don't use, and I try not to use any other firearms in my book because I can manage to not screw up most of those. And then I have gun people I can call if I really need to use a different gun and I have to know what it can do. But copy editing is when you get your gun stuff right. It's when you fact check. It's when you double check when Walmart changed names, character hair color, character eye color. It's when you go back through and all of those times that you wrote in last name in capital letters. Yeah, you should fix that before you send it in the first time. But if you're me, you might not, and that's copy edits is when that gets fixed. So once the copy editor is done with the book, it goes back to the author for approval, and the author sends the copy edits back to the lead editor. With us, the book gets bought, it's assigned to a lead editor. Lead editor sends it to the author sends it back to the lead editor. Lead editor sends it back to the author sends it back to the lead editor. Lead editor looks it over and says, this is ready for copy edits. The lead editor sends it to me or Melissa, and we say, okay. And we send it on to the copy editor and copy the lead editor or copy the writer. Copy editor sends it back to us. The copy editor doesn't send it to the writer. Mostly because we try to keep a minimum number of people in the email string. The lead editor, whichever one of the publishers is handling the production of that book, and the writer. So, copy editor sends it back to me. I send it to the author. Copy editor sends it back to me. I send it to the lead editor. They send it to the author. Or maybe I send it to the author and copy the lead editor on it. Once it gets through copy edits and all of the changes have been accepted, goes back to the lead editor. Hey, I'm done with the copy edits. Here's a clean copy. Then the lead editor sends it to us as, hey, this is ready for proofread. Then it goes to a proofreader. This is another person who's double and triple checking your commas, your spellings, all of those little bitty things, making sure that you haven't again, they're making sure you haven't changed somebody's eye color or hair color, but the proofreader's really getting down to your grammatical stuff, what is and isn't capitalized. All of that is, again, in the proofread stage. So the proofreader sends it back to us. We send it to the lead editor sends it to the author. Author goes through, makes all the proofreading changes, sends it back to the lead editor. Lead editor sends it to me and Melissa and says, hey, this is ready for layout. When that happens, either I'm copied on the email or Melissa emails me and says, hey, this is ready for layout. At Falstaff, I do the layout for all of our books. We use a piece of software called Vellum, and it makes really nice looking books, and it's pretty easy to use. So it's also something that I can do pretty quickly, and I've got templates set up to already have a lot of the Falstaff stuff in there. Hey, check out falstaffbooks.com. Hey, join the Falstaff mailing list. Here's the publisher name, blah, blah, blah. It's got our logo in the places it's supposed to be. I've got a template built. So I do the layout for all of our books. And Vellum generates an ebook and a print version that can be uploaded straight to Amazon or Ingram Spark or Barnes & Noble or whoever you're using. So once I've done the layouts, I send a PDF back to the lead editor. I probably just send it to the author because I'm terrible about actually following the procedures I set. But I send a PDF saying, this is ready for page proofs. Please go through and make sure, and this is your final check for typos. We are not making story changes at this step. But if we've left out a word, if we've doubled a word, if there's a missing end quote, if there's a little tiny thing, this is your chance to catch it. If something's funky in the layout, this is your chance. Page proofs is the final step. Once the page proof notes come in, and then I make the changes into the PDF, send it back to the author, we're good. Then it gets out there, it's uploaded to all of the places where it gets sold, and then it's available. So that's the process. It's kind of a rambling explanation because it's kind of a rambling process, and it varies from writer to writer and from book to book. Some books only need one pass from the lead editor. Some books need 3 or 4. Some books can go straight from the lead editor to the proofread. Very few, but some. Some books have to go through everything. Some books go through page proofs a couple of times. Sometimes, on very rare occasions, we find an error after the book has been out and we'll change it. Most of the time, if we find a typo after the book has been released, I'm like, you've made it through the author, the lead editor, the copy editor, the proofreader, and page proofs. You are a determined little typo and you deserve to live. Go with God. Also, I don't want to spend my entire life revising already published books. So that's our process. And that is how submissions work for us. Like I said, we take less than 0.5% of the submissions that come in. So if you want yours to be the one we take, do everything you can to make it very apparent that you're easy to work with, to make your story as engaging and awesome as possible. Find your own narrative voice and follow the damn submission guidelines. Seriously, you follow the submission guidelines to the letter and you're already ahead of a ton of people out there in the world. So that's what I've got for you this evening. Thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this, please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you have things you'd like to see me talk about on future streams, YouTube comments are the best place to leave those suggestions. Unless you've got my email, then you can just email me. But really, use the YouTube comments for that because, one, it boosts our engagement numbers and makes us look better on YouTube. And two, it keeps them all in one place. And I'm kind of scatterbrained, so I am really helped by it all being in one place. If you'd like to follow us on any social media, you can go to falstaffbooks.com and do that. I don't know. Aaron is in charge of the website, and all of the things are there. Go do the things. Please get out and pick up some of our Women in Horror Month titles. Check out our awesome 99-cent Falstaff Crush ebooks that we've got going on. We've got 4 Falstaff Crush titles on sale for 99 cents for the next, it'll be 2 a week for the next 2 weeks, celebrating Valentine's Day with paranormal romance and hot dragon sex. So get out there and check those out. And thank you. I really appreciate you guys spending time with us. And I hope to see you back next week for another, pub chat, pub rant, fat guy bitching about books, something. We'll figure out what to call it later. Good night.